It's a chess game. And so we need to remove the players from the board, and we need to enable those that are still out there to continue to move forward.
Hey everybody, Matt Edwards here outside the Capitol. It is March 31st, 2026, final day of March. We're almost at the final day of session, and a lot of activity in these final few hours, these final few days going on right now. What I can tell you is yesterday, some updates here, okay? Yesterday in the Senate, during the 14th order, during the amending order, House Bill 516 was radiator capped. That is a term used by the folks inside the building here. It's when you amend a bill so much that you remove everything out of it except for maybe one or two things, and then you replace it with an entirely new bill. And that's what happened at House Bill 516 yesterday. The Senate took the opportunity, Senator Brian Lenny took the opportunity to remove the language of 516 and insert the language of House Bill 745. House Bill 745 is the teachers union bill that was being held in the committee by Senator Dan Foreman. This is a bill that we've been championing. We've been trying to get Senator Foreman to release it, to have a hearing. It didn't happen. So with that committee being done for the session, they pulled this move where they brought in all of the language from 745 into House Bill 516, and it made it out of the amending order by one vote, and now it heads to the Senate for a full vote. We'll see if that tactic worked, and then it will go back to the House for a final vote. So there's still hope that that teachers union bill will stay alive and will become law. We'll see how it goes with this strange process. Speaking of radiator caps, speaking of general orders, this morning the House will convene, and if we're lucky enough, they'll go to general orders, where Senate Bill 1247, the E-Verify bill that came over from the Senate, that is much weaker than the E-Verify bill that came from the House, that is stuck in Senator Guthrie's committee. You guys know the story. You guys know what's going on. Well, this morning, if that bill, the E-Verify bill in general orders, gets modified, it has a chance to become stronger. Maybe not as strong as the E-Verify bill that the House passed. There's a potential for that, but they could strengthen the bill that is happening, that came over from the Senate. So we'll be watching that as well this morning. The other thing, House Bill 752, that's the bill that would outright ban men from going into the restrooms, into changing rooms all across Idaho, and intimidating and invading the privacy of minors, of young girls, of women. That bill is now sitting on the desk of the governor, and Governor Little needs to sign it. He has to sign it. We need to stake the claim and be the first in the nation to outlaw this absolutely ridiculous behavior that is going on from the activist trans mafia out there. So I urge you to call the governor's office, 208-334-2100. That's the first call to action that needs to happen. The other one is to call up the speaker, 208-332-1122, and make sure they do go to general orders to have the E-Verify bill amended and sent back to the Senate. So those are the two things. The Speaker's office, to make sure we go to general orders, that's 208-332-1122. And then call Governor Little, 208-334-2100, and ask him to sign House Bill 752. Folks, it is absolutely wild how many of these things get pushed off to the last minute, but that's what's going on down here. That's the negotiation, that's the politics, that's the chess game that's being played. Never forget, though, all this stuff can become a lot easier. It gets a lot easier when the elections happen. So you have to get out there. You have to donate to your candidates. You have to donate to the incumbents that you like. You have to identify the candidates that you are supporting to take out some of these entrenched incumbents that are setting up roadblocks and stopping good legislation from passing here in Idaho. So stick with it. Stay vigilant. We got another season to go here, and I think we can really, really get over the hump with some of these major elections that are coming up over the spring and in the fall. Don't forget about the fall. All right, folks, that's it from here for now. We're gonna show you as much as we can of what's going on in the House and the Senate this morning. We'll try and flip back and forth to where the action is and keep you abreast. If anything, we'll show you how the radiator cap process went yesterday in the Senate when Senator Brian Lenny removed the language from 516 and inserted language from 745. So I thank you for being with us. Thank you for sticking around, and I'll see you next time. Take care, folks.
There is nothing in the Constitution that has a wall of separation between the church and the state.
Candidates on the list, please.
So further debate.
Mr. President,
Senator Taylor.
thank you. I just would like to stand up and add my 2 cents to this debate. I think that
Take a shot.
thank you. I'll take a shot. You going right where I am. Thank you. I think that the senator from District 35 is a real pistol. He's taken pretty decent aim at this thing. He's pulled the trigger, and I think he's hit a bullseye with it. So I'll be supporting.
Mr. President, for a punless debate. Senators, I would certainly argue in support of the legislation. They included the primary and most important firearm in option A, and I'm glad that's there. That was my first weapon. AR-15, great gun, shot it in the military, but we're talking about foundational history. AR-15 is kind of a kid's gun when it comes in comparison to the Winchesters. So urge your aye vote, vote how you want. I'll be voting for A when it comes on the ballot.
Mr. President.
Senator Woodward.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have to admit I'm a little partial to that model 1911. And just to set the record, we were still using it in the Navy well into the late 90s. And I believe when I was mobilized again after 9/11, that I still had one of those strapped to my leg. So they were still in use for quite a while. Happy to vote for that one, Mr. President.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, maybe the most popular piece of this legislation is the part that you can submit additional suggestions to Legislative Council, and maybe that will be the most well-attended, most watched, most interesting thing that we get to do at Legislative Council at some point in the future. And then I do have one concern. We didn't include in the fiscal note the ability to add pictures to the ballot or color printing. So that may be something we want to consider in the future, because it may be difficult. Hopefully people are prepared when they come to the ballot and make their choices when they just see the names of the guns listed on the ballot and not the lovely pictures that we have for our consideration today. I urge your aye vote.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Harris.
Thank you,
You're
Mr.
recognized to close debate.
The question of the Henry come up. Sure enough, the Henry did play a special part in the history of our country, being the first repeating rifle. But the Winchesters are more popular. The AR-15, I have to agree with the senator from 23. I'm partial to blued steel and walnut rather than plastic, but I do use AR-15s on the ranch to shoot things, and they do have their place. The one that I wished was added would be the Smith & Wesson Model 29 44 Magnum, as one of our famous Idaho cowboys, Elmer Keith, was instrumental in the development of the 44 Magnum. He developed the cartridge. Smith & Wesson made the gun for him. And he had a nice set of Smith & Wesson Model 29s. But of course, if you don't know what that gun is, it was made famous by Clint Eastwood in the Dirty Harry movies. So anyway, with that, Mr. President, debate is closed.
Make our day. Debate is closed. The question before you is, shall House Bill number 932 pass? The secretary will call the roll.
Adams, Anthony, Burnt, Bjorky, Blaylock, Burtonshaw, Carlson, Cook, Den Hartog, Foreman, Galloway, Grow, Guthrie, Harris, Hart, Kaiser, Cole, Lakey, Lenny, Lent, Nichols, Okonowitz, Robbie, Ricks, Ruckty, Samaroth, Shippey, Taylor, Taves, Van Orden, Ward King, Wintro, Woodward, Cito, Seiderveld, Anthon, Taves, Ward King, Wintro,
The vote count shows 32 in favor with 3 absent, a majority having voted in the affirmative. House Bill 932 has passed the Senate. Without correction of title, we'll send it back to the House of Representatives. The Senate will now have before it for final consideration House Bill number 887. The Secretary will read the bill.
in the House of Representatives, House Bill 887 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to water skiing, to provide an exception to the observer requirement and to make technical corrections.
Mr. President,
Senator Land.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of House Bill 887 be dispensed with, and the journals show it's been read a third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Is there an objection? Hearing none. Senator Lynch, you're recognized to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm still stuck on that last debate, thinking about all those fun things, and that Model 94, thinking that relates to the beginning of our state in 1890, really close there. So 2 things that are really fun for me. One is guns, so excuse me for getting a little caught up in that. But the second one is having to do with recreation in our state. For many years, our family has enjoyed boating throughout our state, and this particular piece of legislation was brought by some boaters who spend a lot of time on the water, but there has become an interesting thing that's evolved over time as our waters have become more crowded. This has to do with water skiing, and in our state, we have a boating law that says if you're towing someone, you should have the driver and also an observer in the boat at all times for safety reasons. The exception to that has been that if you are in a designated water ski course, now this is the courses that have the pylons in them, and you see the person on one ski going back and forth between there, and the boat goes down the middle. That's been the exception if you're in a designated course. What this particular bill does is it carves out just a little more latitude for folks who, I'll call them the hardcore water skiers. Typically, if you're at the lake and maybe you've gone out in the morning and you're sitting on the dock, the sun's coming up, and you see a boat coming in off the lake and there's a couple, 2 or 3 people in it, they've been out water skiing trying to get the very best water of the day. What this particular law will let us do, it will let those who do water ski like that, and it carves out the time up until from 1 hour prior to sunrise up until 9 a.m. It lets people water ski outside of a course with one person in the boat and a water skier, similar to what they do in the courses. So this alleviates the problem of, by having them off the water by 9, typically that's when your recreationalists start coming in and things get crowded. It also limits the time of year they can do that. So in the summer between May 15th and September 10th is the only time that that's allowed to happen. So I think this is a good thing. People who use this are people who recreate in our state. We have so many great opportunities from the Sandpoint area, McCall area, over to our side in eastern Idaho to recreate. And I think this just helps people enjoy these waters. And with that, debate's open.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Lynch, you're recognized to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Debate is closed.
Debate is closed. The question before the Senate is, shall House Bill number 887 pass the Senate?
Mr. President.
Senator Harris?
It's going to be different.
No,
vote.
yeah.
Well, here they come. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the roll call vote used for the passage of House Bill 932 be now used for the passage of House Bill 887.
What's that? 32, 3. You've heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the vote count shows 32 in favor with 3 absent. A majority having voted in the affirmative, House Bill number 887 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction of title, the title is approved and the bill will be returned to the House. The Senate will now have before it for final consideration House Bill number 895. The Secretary will read the bill.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 895 by Ways and Means Committee, an act relating to data centers.
Mr. President.
Senator Burnshaw.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of House Bill 895 be dispensed with and the journal show that has been read a third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Is there an objection? Hearing none. Senator Burnshaw, you have the floor to open debate.
So, good senators, last fall, my wife and I were in Arizona driving near Phoenix, and we saw these cones on the ground, these large cones that had steam coming out of them. There were like 6 of them. And I asked my wife, what do you suppose that is? That looks like nuclear power. It looks like the 3 Mile Island situation. But what those were are data center cooling centers. And so why do we have data centers, cooling centers on our list today? The purpose of this legislation is to ensure that cooling functions of data centers built in the future is either designed for a non-consumptive use of water or uses of water for which purposes from a municipality, water district, or water or sewer system are functioning. So if you look at the handout there, you'll see data center in the Dalles, Oregon. That data center, the water flows into it and it comes out in steam vapor. That's what you call a consumptive use of water if it goes out to something else. Now, a non-consumptive use of water would be like the water you put, say, like in the motor of your car. That water circulates, cools, and circulates, then cools. That's non-consumptive. This is a consumptive use. This is the same as if you put water on a field to water crops. It's called a consumptive use. This particular data center uses about 25% of the Dalles municipality water. So it's consuming quite a large amount of water. If you look at the top of page 2 that I gave you there, you'll see 20 to 50 megawatts of power, typical daily direct water use, 50,000 to 200,000 gallons per day. That's the equivalent of 500 to 2,000 houses. 100 megawatts, hyperscale, 300,000 gallons to 1.2 million gallons, which would be the equivalent of 3,000 to 12,000 homes. And then finally, 300 to 500 megawatts of power would use 1.5 million to 5 million gallons of water, which would compare to 15,000 or up to 50,000 homes per day. So the water consumption is pretty extensive. If you look down the page halfway, you'll see that Microsoft uses 7.8 billion gallons in 2024. And that's a year over year. Google uses 6.3 to 6.8 billion gallons. Amazon Web Services estimated 5.5 to 7 billion gallons. Meta, 1.1 billion gallons, and Oracle Cloud, 600 to 900 million gallons, and rapidly rising. So why do we have this bill before you? Data centers on average, consume water unless they're in a closed system. What we're saying in Idaho is if you come to Idaho, you're welcome, but your system has to be closed. So it's a non-consumptive use of water. You can imagine someone like Microsoft building another facility in the Boise Valley and using 7.8 million or billion gallons of water per day. It's huge. It will have an impact on our aquifer. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read from CAI exclusive, and that's part of the information you have before you, but you don't have this page. It says water has
Go ahead and read it. Having cited the source.
The water has become the second largest constraint on new data centers development, surpassed only by power availability. The single hyperscale campus can now evaporate more water daily than a town of 10,000 people. With AI training and inference workloads driving unprecedented cooling demands, the U.S. data centers consume an estimated 17 to 20 billion gallons of water directly in 24 and 25. Analysts project this figure could quadruple by 2030, so in 4 years. As we head into 2026, water strategy is no longer optional. It's mission critical. So we don't have a lot of data centers in the state of Idaho, but what we have are consumptive uses of data centers, of water in data centers. And we need to look to the future, and that could have a huge impact on our aquifer and other water users, and could take, in the state of Idaho, we have first in time, first in right, and could affect those water rights of those that have water in the state of Idaho. And with that, Mr. President, the debate is open.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Sarah Lenny.
to debate the bill.
You have the floor.
I think, Mr. President, this is one of those actions have consequences kind of thing. I wasn't here when we rolled out the red carpet for Meta to build their data center in CUNA. I'm generally not a big fan of corporate welfare, but that's why we're talking about this bill. That's one of the reasons we're talking about this bill. But with that said, hindsight is 20/20, and I think Idaho, farmers especially have these water rights that they've earned over generations. And I think this is a great bill because we're just telling these data centers that they can't drain our aquifers so they can cool their servers. So it's a great Idaho bill. I do commend the senator from 31 for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. President, to debate the bill.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea. I have been watching what's been going on with other states and areas that have data centers that have been going into them and what's happening with their water. There are some areas now in some of these states where they're almost turning into ghost towns because of the water issues. I saw a video not too long ago where they were showing what their water looks like because of the data centers, and it's this icky, gooey, mucky looking water mess that's coming out of their faucets to where they have to go and buy clean water from the stores because that's all that they have. So it is creating a lot of problems, and we need to find a way to get some control over this. And we know water is very, very critical to our state, and there's a lot of reliance on it. And I think it's one of those things that we need to continue to reflect on as we move forward with data centers coming in here, because we don't have an unlimited source of water. With a mild winter that we have had this year, we don't know what that is going to look like for the spring and summer. And when we have data centers that are coming in using an abundant supply of water, then there's probably going to be some issues that come about that. So I do like this bill. I usually am not for like picking and choosing winners and losers, but in this case, I don't think that that's what we're doing, because water is critical, and we need to be able to put some boundaries around the data centers on when they are using this, so that we don't end up having some of the issues that some of these other states are experiencing. So I'll support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Hearing none. Senator Burtonshaw, you're recognized to close the debate.
So, good senators, just for reference, 1 billion gallons of water covers 3,050 acres, or it equals 3,050 acre feet. And an acre foot is to cover 1 acre with a foot of water. So think about that, 3,050 acres for 1 billion gallons of water. This means that new data centers cannot independently appropriate groundwater or surface water for evaporating cooling systems. They have to have a closed system. And with that, Mr. President, my debate is closed.
Debate is closed. The question before you is, shall House Bill number 895 pass? The Secretary will call the roll.
Adams. Anthony. Burnt. Bierke. Laylock. Burtonshaw.
Aye.
Carlson. Cook. Den Hartog. Foreman. Galloway. Grow. Guthrie. Harris. Hart. Kaiser. Cole. Lakey. Lenny. Lent. Nichols. Okonowitz. Robbie. Ricks. Ruckty. Samoroth. Shippey. Taylor. Taves. Van Orden. Wardingle King. Wintro. Woodward. Cito. Seiderveld. Adams. Anthony. Bierke. Wintro.
The vote count shows 32 in favor with 1 against and 2 absent. The majority having voted in the affirmative, House Bill number 895 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction to the title, the title is approved. The bill will be returned to the House.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate advance to the 14th order of business.
Without objection, the Senate will advance the 14th order of business, consideration of the general calendar. The Senate is at the 14th order.
Mr. President, is House Bill 666 in this order of business?
House Bill 666 is in this order of business.
Mr. President, I would like to move that it move it to the second reading calendar.
Through unanimous consent.
I would ask unanimous consent to move House Bill 666 to the second reading calendar.
You've heard the unanimous consent request that the House Bill 666 be placed on in the 12th order of business or the second reading calendar. Is there an objection? Hearing none, it is so ordered.
Mr. President.
Sarah Harris.
Mr. President, is Senate Bill 1355 in this order of business?
Senate Bill 1335 is in the 14th order of business.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that Senate Bill 1355 be returned to the State Affairs Committee.
Is there an objection? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1355 will be returned to the Senate State Affairs Committee.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate return to the 5th order of business.
Without objection, the Senate will return to the 5th order of business, presentation of petitions, resolutions, and memorials. The Senate's at the 5th order.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate advance to the 6th order of business.
Without objection, the Senate will advance to the 6th order of business. Reports of standing committees. The Senate's at the 6th order of business.
Mr. President, I ask the Senate go at ease for any announcements.
The Senate will be at ease.
Mr. President, for an announcement.
You have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, on judiciary and rules, we will be meeting at 12:45. So 45-minute lunch. Thanks.
Mr. President,
Senator Grove.
JFAC will be meeting at 1. We'll have our preliminary meeting at 12:30. That may be conflicting with some other committees, but it conflicts for me with another committee, but I will be at JFAC and hope you can be there with us at 12:30 upstairs, 1 o'clock in the JFAC room. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Sir Ricks.
Yeah, thank you for announcement. Just a reminder, local government and tax committee today at 1 p.m.
Mr. President, for an announcement.
Senator Taves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, just want to remind the majority caucus that we do have an optional meeting in the caucus room right after floor.
Optional. The Senate will be in order. The Senate's in the 6th order of business.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess until 2:15 p.m. today.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
Been moved and seconded that we recess until 2:15. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The Senate is in recess.
There is nothing in the Constitution that has a wall of separation between the church and the state.
Senators, next, the committee will have under consideration House Bill 516. Just as a reminder, the debate is limited. The sponsor will have 5 minutes to open debate and 5 minutes to close, and then there will be 2 senators will be able to speak in opposition, and they will be allowed 5 minutes each. And then there's no roll call, so we'll go to that point. So the committee will now have under consideration House Bill 516. If there are no objections, amendment to the bill will be considered read.
Moved by Senator Lenny, seconded by Senator Carlson, that the amendment to the bill be adopted.
Senator Lenny, you're recognized to open debate and amendment to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So keeping with the theme of the day, this is another radiator cap amendment here. I would like to say that the original bill sponsor is totally okay with this. It's not a hostile amendment or anything like that. So what this amendment does is it says that public school districts should not be able to use taxpayer funds to support teachers' unions. That's all this amendment does. And I just want to show you the few things it does here to serve that purpose. So it says school districts may not use taxpayer funds to support teachers' unions. And they cannot, it says they cannot contribute public funds directly to a teachers' union. They cannot increase a teacher's pay with the understanding that the salary enhancement will be used to pay the teachers' union dues. They cannot collect union dues directly from teachers' paychecks. They cannot grant paid time off to teachers to engage in union activities unless, of course, the union reimburses the district for the value of the teacher's time. They cannot provide more personal contact information of teachers to a union that must be disclosed under the Idaho Public Records Act. And the last one, they cannot require or coerce teachers to meet or interact with a teachers union. So that's what this amendment does. The two things it does not do, however, is it does not prevent teachers from forming unions or engaging in collective bargaining with school districts as they do now. And this doesn't cost anything. It should actually produce a modest cost savings or even a revenue increase for several school districts throughout Idaho. So with that, Mr. Chair, debate is open.
Debate being open, is there debate in opposition?
Mr. Chair, debate in opposition.
Senator Foreman.
Thank you. These proposed amendments represent an attempt to radiator cap the bill and thereby circumvent the committee process and the will of the body as expressed in the body's previous vote on the substance of the proposed amendments. I encourage a no vote.
Thank you, Senator. Is there any other debate in opposition? Senator Lent.
Thank you. And as I understand, we only get two people, right?
Yeah.
All right. You know, we see this happen occasionally here. We give a little bit, but people tend to go for the jugular here. I'm okay with the issue of what we're spending from, as far as deducting from the checks. That really has, the payroll deduction has decreased significantly over the last years, and the teachers union has really worked to do that. So that's not really the big issue. What I see here in the 1 minute basically that we've had to look at this, on page 2 under definitions, item 5, representative activities, and then item 6, teacher union activities. So if I understand this correctly, it's saying that they cannot participate in these things. So they cannot support or oppose any candidate for federal, state, or local public office, influence the passage or defeat of any federal or state legislation, federal or state, local ordinance, or any ballot measures, promote or solicit membership or participation. E, participate in the administration, business, and internal governments of the teachers union. I, preparing, filing, or pursuing grievances. K, engaging in negotiations in any related mediation. And L, administering a negotiation agreement. And M, participating in labor management committees. I, in my career, had the opportunity to work with representation both in the corporate side and also in the public side as being a school board member for many years. What I've found is that a successful organization has to have employee voice. And what's happened is we have this bias that has been built into our culture that this is all negative. In reality, this employee voice works fairly well throughout our state. And we really do need this. And I will add this, that the good foreman of the, I don't know what number you are.
6.
6, senator from 6. He and I have been working very hard with stakeholders on a new thing emerging in Idaho called Idaho Kids Matter. And the IEA has come to the table and said they want to participate with that. They want to really change the culture of how they're viewed in our state and be positive and be a positive influence for education. This historical perspective of how we view this really needs to change. I think this is a direct shot. They're not only just doing what they're saying, this is a lot deeper than, and in just a few minutes, this is really out of line here. We don't need to go this far.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Lenny, you're recognized to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Debate is closed.
Debate being closed. The question is, shall amendment to the bill be adopted? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor say no.
No.
Chairs in doubt. All those in favor, please stand. All those against, please stand. The amendment passes. If there are no objections, corrections title we considered read.
Moved by Senator Lenny, seconded by Senator Carlson, that the correction to title be adopted.
Shall the correction to the title be adopted? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. Ayes have it. The correction to title will be adopted. Senator Taves.
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the committee rise, it report that it has had under consideration House Bill 516 and return same as amended without recommendation.
You've heard that motion. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. Ayes have it, and that motion passes.
There is nothing in the Constitution that has a wall of separation between the church and the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'm Judy Boyle, District 9, and this is Senate Bill 1430. So, as most of you know, we have one of the strongest Second Amendments in our Constitution of all the states, which I am very proud. And in about 2008, the legislature decided to occupy the field of firearms. And we have given some exceptions to universities, to schools, and to counties. So you will notice on the first page, line 15, except as expressly authorized by state statute. And so that's what I'm talking about. That's not a new section of code at all. The new section begins on line 17, where we add executive order or policy. And then we go through on line 20 through 25. So we're saying we do not want our laws broken anymore about this. Sometimes it's an accident, sometimes it isn't, it seems. So we've never put a penalty in there. I've always had an interesting thing in my mind about why would elected officials break our laws? But sometimes they do, so now we have to put penalties in there. So you will notice on the second page, line 14, the Attorney General or any person or organization whose membership is adversely affected. They can ask for damages, for any kind of declaratory relief or a permanent injunction. But before they do that, they have to go to the Attorney General. He issues a written notice to the offending entity, and they have 30 days. After he issues this, he will investigate. 30 days after that, if he finds there is a real problem, they have 30 days to cure that before they receive a possible $10,000 penalty. So I would stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative Boyle. Are there questions for Representative Boyle? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move to public testimony. First up, Diana David. Welcome to the committee. You have 2 minutes today for public testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Diana David. I am the Giffords Gun Owners for Safety State Ambassador, a retired worldwide insurance industry risk manager, gun violence survivor, and a gun owner. I'm asking you to vote no on S 1430 because of the risks and limitations it brings to communities around our state. Preemption laws stop cities from enacting regulations like limiting guns in sensitive public places, such as parks and city and county buildings. They create dangerous loopholes and punish local officials for daring to try to pass safety measures in their cities where those officials know more about the needs of better protecting their citizens than anyone else. Preemption laws override the professional experience of leading law enforcement officials and denies them from adjusting needs as our communities grow, especially in the larger cities around our state where risks and acts of gun violence differ from smaller towns. Preemption laws can enable gun trafficking, something Idaho has seen an increase of in the last 6 years, resulting in arrests by both federal and state law enforcement. And sometimes those operations have been intertwined with drug trafficking as well. When sensible regulations cannot be passed where there's a need, everyone in Idaho becomes 1 degree of separation from becoming my family. I know the deadly cost of loopholes and non-existent laws that restricted law enforcement's ability to do their job while they knew and could not prevent what was coming. As a retired risk manager, I see what's coming with bills like this, and as a survivor who has seen horrific images and lost loved ones to gun violence, I see what's coming when bills masked as stopping infringement are actually bills that dissolve all statewide political subdivisions from taking care of their communities. Idaho is not small town anymore like we used to be. We need sensible legislation and options as our state's population and crime rates continue to rise so city leaders can adjust accordingly. Please vote no on S 1430. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Are there questions for Diana this morning? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony, for being here. Aveen Klein.
Good morning, Chairman. I have a written testimony as well for the committee.
Okay, Ricky,
And that's
would you
what
want to
page?
grab her testimony? Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, honorable members of the committee. Aveen Klein, State Director for the NRA, in support of Senate Bill 1430. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today. I'd like to start my comments by defining that a firearm is no more dangerous in an urban environment than it is in a rural environment. The Second Amendment in Article 1, Section 11 of the Idaho Constitution protect an individual's right to keep and bear arms. The right to bear arms is so fundamental to the fabric of Idaho that the legislature has declared its intent to wholly occupy the fields of firearm regulations. Preemption laws offer legal protection for firearm owners, but only when they are enforced. Senate Bill 1430 makes no change to the underlying policy of the firearms preemption laws. The bill does, however, provide a missing and necessary enforcement mechanism. Senate Bill 1430 allows the enforcement of these laws when a government entity violates Idaho law and abridges the constitutional right to keep and bear arms. Without this change, an individual is forced to first violate the law, putting themselves in legal jeopardy, and left to foot the legal bill in order to hold government accountable. Senate Bill 1430 allows people to hold their government accountable while also respecting the opportunity to cure. The legislature's intent to wholly regulate firearms laws must be matched by the legislature's intent to enforce those laws. On behalf of the NRA and the tens of thousands of NRA members in the state of Idaho, thank you again for the opportunity to testify. I urge your support. I do pass recommendation to the floor, and I'd be happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Aveen. Are there questions for Aveen? I don't see any. Thank you for your testimony today. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to testify on Senate Bill 1430? Seeing none, Representative Boyle, there was one negative testimony, so if you would like to come and wrap up, we'll give you an opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. The only thing that I have to say is since 2008, the legislature has occupied the field. So, any questions?
Seeing none, thank you very much. Committee, Senate Bill 1430 is properly before the committee. Representative Digert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we send Senate Bill 1430 to the floor with a due pass.
Committee, we have a motion to send Senate Bill 1430 to the floor with a due pass recommendation. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. It will be done. Would you like to be recorded as voting no? Okay. Committee will now consideration House Bill 621. Representative Mitchell, welcome to House State Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. Representative Brandon Mitchell from District 6, covering Latah, Lewis, and part of Nez Perce County. Today I bring House Bill 621 to you. Idaho has been long a national leader in protecting the rights of keep and bear arms. Our strong statewide firearm preemption law, which you just discussed, makes it clear that the legislature, not counties or cities, occupies the entire field of firearm regulation. This prevents confusion and a patchwork of local rules and ensures that law-abiding Idahoans can exercise their constitutional right consistently across the state. Unfortunately, the current language in 183302C prohibiting concealed weapons in courthouses has created ambiguity. Some counties have used this vagueness to ban concealed carry throughout the entire county building and judicial complexes, including administrative offices, clerk counters, and areas citizens simply pay fees, vote, or meet with commissioners. These are everyday government functions that have nothing to do with the court proceedings or prisoner detention. HB 621 fixes that problem with simple common sense clarification. It narrows the prohibition to the courtroom portion of the courthouse and any areas actively used to as jails or holding facilities, exactly where security concerns are the highest. These areas are left up to the counties to determine, while still allowing citizens the right to carry when visiting the rest of the county building. It leaves open carry rules, all in existing exceptions for law enforcement, authorized security, etc., unchanged. By passing 621, we've reinforced our preemption statute, eliminating local overreach and restoring the balance and legislature's intent. Strong protections inside courtrooms while respecting the rights of Idaho citizens in the rest of the building. This isn't about expanding carry into sensitive areas. It's about preventing counties from expanding restrictions beyond the state law, what the state law actually says. My constituents have been very vocal about this and would like to see something done. I've been hearing from constituents from other counties as well, including here locally. The issue that we're trying to correct is something that we've seen pop up in Nez Perce County, actually, with their new county building. They block people from going in and doing their regular everyday business, from being able to use their constitutional right to carry a firearm, and that's kind of what this is set to do. I do want to make one point that's very clear when it talks about courtroom portions. This will be determined by local governments, so things like hallways may be something they need to consider if all of the courtrooms are on one single hallway. And with that, I'd like to turn some time over to my good co-sponsor, Representative Harris from District 7.
Representative Harris, have you been to State Affairs yet?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have. Thank you.
Oh, that's right. You had a voting bill.
A voting bill and presidential primary.
Okay, that's still, I think, trying to find a home over there in the Senate, right?
That is correct,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, committee, for the record, I'm Kyle Harris, District 7, the other part of Nez Perce County, Idaho, and Adams County as well. House Bill 621 it's a pretty common sense bill. We're not trying to overreach into courtroom spaces or private spaces or sensitive spaces, right? We're just trying to make it feasible for us to continue to carry our guns and follow the preemption laws that we have in the state of Idaho. Right now, you're seeing through Ada County, Kootenai County, Nez Perce County, counties all over the state where these counties are getting together, they're building new court county buildings. And so like Nez Perce County, for example, all of the court business is on the second floor, but all your metal detectors, body scanners, bag scanners, I mean, it's like walking through TSA now, are on the first floor, and that's where all the county business is done. And so when I show up to register to vote, I just not have to disarm myself to walk in, to pay my taxes, to register to vote, to talk to my county commissioners. All those things could simply just be moved up to the second floor. And if they were following current preemption law, that's where they would have put them to begin with. So with this bill, we're just trying to make sure that we're following the state's preemption law. We're trying to open it up so that we are not going to have to disarm ourselves to go talk to our elected officials, pay our taxes, handle DMV, whatever the situation might be in that building. So with that, we'd ask for a do pass recommendation to send her up to the floor and see if we can get this thing moving.
Thank you. Are there questions for Representative Harris? You must have some tough county commissioners if you got to take your gun in there to talk to them.
Right.
Mine aren't that tough. Representative Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Harris, question for you. So have you guys had any discussions with your county commissioners on remodeling or reassigning those metal detectors to the second floor and just solving it right there in Nez Perce County? Because when we pass a law, it's going statewide, so we're impacting all counties. Have you guys had a conversation about that?
Representative Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Crane, yes, we had many conversations with our current county commissioners just trying to simply fix the problem. Let's move it to the second floor and not take this to the state. They refuse adamantly, and so now we are here to fix this issue statewide. We have actually one of the testifiers online is running for current county commission seat in Nez Perce County, and he's in support of this legislation. So
Now you know why they want to carry guns to talk to their county commissioners. Okay, Representative Bingham.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harris, thank you for coming. I do have a question on the fiscal note. It says that there will be no increase or decrease in revenue. So my sheriff sent me a spreadsheet, which I passed out to the committee. We have 44 counties in Idaho, and of only 25 of them responded as to what the cost would be. For my county alone, it would be $1.96 million. And of that, salaries is $1.3 million. So the fiscal note says that it's zero, but as I'm seeing this here, just for 25 counties that responded, estimate that it would be $36 million.
Representative Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Bingham. Counties have an option here. They can find a workaround that costs nothing. It could be something as simple as making a path around the metal detector to handle county business on the first floor or whatever floor. I don't know how every building is set up, right? So let's just talk about Nez Perce County since that's what I know. There's a way they could do something to either get around the metal detectors to stay on the first floor, whether it's just posting a guard at the elevator that takes you up to the second floor so they don't have to move the equipment. But at the end of the day, we are dealing with a constitutional right. And if the counties decided to spend their money to violate the state's preemption law and my constitutional right, then I don't really care what the cost is at this point. If it's going to cost them $1 million, then they shouldn't have made a mistake in the first place.
Follow-up?
For a follow-up, Mr. Chairman, Representative Harris. So in my county, personally in Bonneville County, the way that our courthouse is set up is we have other offices on the second floor. So this would not be just merely moving it to the second floor. If it was that simple, then that would probably be a possibility. But we have other offices on the second floor that we would then have to move. So it would be like a pretty extensive remodel. I am all for the Second Amendment. I believe in gun rights. I'm all for that. But I am concerned about the fiscal note for my county.
Would you like to respond? Okay. Representative Mickelson.
Yeah,
Representative Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Harris. I think that we're oversimplifying a serious problem that we would be creating with this bill. Have you talked to the trial court administrator? Because our courthouses are actually, under state statute, are controlled by the trial court administrators that decide what they need for security within those buildings. Have you guys contacted them or talked to them about this at all?
Representative Harris.
Mr. Chair, Representative Mickelson, as far as I know, no.
Representative Mitchell, would you care to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Mickelson. We have not talked to him. The key on this whole thing is kind of what I said in the first. They're using this law to stop you from going into your county offices totally because they put courtrooms within the or the county buildings, and that's where the problem runs into law. So you got this law that's actually in conflict right now with the preemption law that we have because they're using it as a workaround to still be able to block people from carrying in their county buildings.
Follow-up?
Follow-up. I think our good forefathers, when they set forth building county courthouses, never envisioned the day that we would be in today. I am all for people having a right to carry their guns, but the amount of violence and threats against our judiciary has tripled in the last 5 to 10 years. And what concerns me is we have courthouses that were built in a time when people were much more responsible. Everybody did carry their guns and nobody was out shooting everybody up. But we have situations now where we have judges getting killed and court officers getting hurt and things from violence. And we have courthouses that are 150 years old, some of 100 years old. And so when you say, oh, it's just our Second Amendment right, and so it doesn't matter what that costs. But we are in lean times right now. We're cutting budgets everywhere for sheriffs and everybody else. And then you guys come with a bill that basically says it doesn't cost anything, which clearly you didn't follow that to ground. And we didn't take the time to talk to the trial court administrators about how this affects the courts and the county commissioners that have these buildings. And so I guess I'm a little bit, I think that if we want a good bill, we have to get the stakeholders at the table, and I'm not sure that you guys did that on this bill.
We'll take that as a comment. If you want to respond to the comment, you're welcome to.
I appreciate the comment, but the Second Amendment is set in stone with our state constitution and with our federal constitution. When it comes to the cost, you did bring up the cost. Nothing in this bill says anything about requiring costs. Nothing in this bill says they have to go buy more metal detectors. Nothing in this bill says they have to hire more people. This bill simply is just saying you're going to protect the courtrooms and not the rest of the county building.
So to that, Representative Mitchell, in my county, different than Nez Perce, we don't have to take guns to meet with our county commissioners. But setting that aside, on the first floor is the metal detectors, with single entrance, first floor is metal detectors. But we have courtrooms, say, on second floor, on third floor, on fourth floor. So if the bill were to go into effect, they would remove those from the first floor, and I'm assuming put it on the second, but they're then going to have to add them on the third and on the fourth as well, and then hire additional staff. Have you guys taken that into account with that each county could potentially be different, and maybe yours, it wouldn't change, but in others that it would?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I've looked at that, and I've considered that, and I've talked to the counties, and I want to go and actually visit some of these buildings and kind of give them some input and some ideas, because I know there's ways to work this. It's just we're leaving it up to the counties to decide how to work this.
Okay. Representative Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I have a question about Nez Perce County. The bottom floor is not a courtroom, correct? But yet they don't want to open that up. Do you have people on that first floor that are afraid of citizens?
Representative Mitchell.
Chairman Crane, Representative Boyle, I'm not sure the reasoning why. I know that one of the county commissioners I talked to that actually told me, yeah, we'd like to see you bring something, because they can't get everybody else on board to move those, because that one would be an easy fix, and it probably would have taken care of the whole issue. But I don't know why they put them on the first floor in the first place.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I asked that because in my county, we have an elected official who is afraid of the people. And she raised such a fuss that they actually spent $1.4 million to put in a new entrance and one of these machines. And then a year later, she moved to another building that doesn't have any kind of security. So to me, this was a total waste of taxpayer money.
Okay. Representative Hawes.
Thanks for your question.
Sure.
Let's see, it's line 15. It says that there's a carve out for any area of the courthouse being used for, jail holding facility and the detention of prisoners or any person undergoing trial. Is that limited to criminal defendants?
Representative Mitchell.
Chairman Crane, Representative Hawes, I would say that that's going to be interpreted by the actual courts themselves on what is going to be limited there. It's blocking from when you put people into a holding cell or places where they're detaining people. We don't want firearms in there. As a matter of fact, my first draft that I did of this didn't have all that language in. And as I sat down and talked to some of the attorneys and talked to some of the other organizations, that's where we came up with putting that in and adding that protection in there.
Thank you for a comment.
Sure.
So everybody can laugh right now, but as you know, I'm an attorney. And I'm a civil attorney. And many of the cases that I've witnessed or been involved with that are civil matters, people's emotions and don't just run high in the context of criminal trials. And I've personally been involved in lawsuits as counsel where if there hadn't been metal detectors and I hadn't known that all the people walking around in the hallway and coming in and out of that courtroom didn't have guns on them, sitting there with my back to the entire room would have been a real scary proposition, because I don't have, even if I'm carrying a gun, my head is back here, I'm looking up here. Right? And there are people I don't know sitting in there that have animus against my client, maybe against my firm, maybe against the judge. And what we're setting up here is, a situation where the issues we already have with violence against judicial officers becomes exacerbated. We are facing a massive judge shortage in Idaho because we don't pay them enough, but we also live in an environment right now where not everybody respects the judicial branch and the judiciary, And it's not just limited to those criminal trials. And so I worry about our judicial officers, their safety, and what we're setting up as another reason for people to choose not to take that real important job. And what I just saw is we passed, potentially we'll be passing through this other bill to make it a strict liability offense for any county that violates this law, where every violation is $10,000. And then we are stacking that up against these immense costs, right? And I think with all respect for Second Amendment rights, we need to think through this much more carefully in the courtroom context, where these buildings just aren't set up for this right now, and they're not set up for safety. So I'm going to be a no on this one.
Okay. Would you like to respond? Okay. Anyone else have questions for the bill sponsors? Representative Church.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for a question.
Sure.
And Representative Mitchell, because I heard you say in the last thing you said that it would be determined by the courthouse itself, and then earlier you said local governments would determine what the quote courtroom portion meant. And then I'm just wondering how that would square with Senate Bill 1430, where we just added comma or policy. Is it your intent that the local governments would create policies to determine what are courtroom portions? You talked about hallways, et cetera. And would those policies then violate the preemption? Or how would we square different courtrooms determining which are eligible places to carry a gun and ineligible places that wouldn't violate 1430 as a policy?
Representative Mitchell.
Thank you, Chairman Crane and Representative Church. I'd like to go back to what I said in the very beginning. I said, let's see here, 183302C prohibiting carrying weapons in a courthouse has created ambiguity. Some counties have used this vagueness to ban concealed carry throughout the entire county building. The problem that we're running into is that we're building county buildings now, we're putting a courtroom in it, and that they're saying now that whole thing you can't go into when you're supposed to be blocking just that courtroom area. And so we're just making that clear through this. And I think that's where it's going to be a determination on how do they want to block it from actually getting into the courtrooms and not the rest of the county buildings, so that we have our rights.
Any further questions for the bill sponsor? Oh, we do. We got a couple more.
No, just for a quick follow-up to that, I worry that because buildings are all different and because every building would have to have its own policy on how to do these, we've just talked about a lot of different ways in which Nez Perce or other counties might be able to have circumvented or circumvent, in the future, which would make them policies that then could carry with it that $10,000 fine, which might put them in a pickle as to how to do this effectively with the change in language that we just added to 1430.
Would you care to respond? Okay. Representative Mickelson.
Yeah, I have just a question for the sponsors, Mr. Chairman. In the NRA letter that we have sitting in front of us, it says Idaho Code 183302C expressly prohibits the concealed carry of weapon in a courthouse. So is a courthouse the whole building in your estimation, or is it only the room?
Representative Mitchell.
Thank you, Chairman Crane and Representative Mickelson. I think that's what we're trying to get to the point of. We're building courthouses and courtrooms and county buildings and all that. Our preemption law doesn't, it stops you from, it prevents you from stopping people from walking into their county building. When you're putting the two together, that's where you're getting conflated. And so that's why this bill even came up. We've got a lot of constituents that have come to me and says, I want my rights restored and be able to walk in and pay a tax or pay a fee or register to vote or whatever. And they're not able to in some of these county buildings because they put courtrooms inside.
have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.